12:15 a.m. a Ukrainian drone operator was executing what should have been a routine deep strike mission against Millerovo Airbase when suddenly his screen lit up with electromagnetic interference so powerful it looked like a solar storm. Russia's Pol 21 jamming grid had just activated at maximum power 50 miles of electronic chaos designed to send every GPS-guided weapon into the dirt. This was about to transform a precision strike into a survival race against physics itself. Based on drift calculations, the operator had exactly 6 minutes before his remaining drones wandered so far off course they'd never find the target, unless he did something Russia would never expect. Just last night, Russia launched 171 drones from this exact location. About 100 Shaheds are screaming across the border targeting Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's not sitting around waiting for the next wave. They are hunting the source. And the administrative building in Millerovo, the command center, has been exposed. This is where Russia believes it is safe to coordinate these swarms of drones. 6 p.m. Sumy Oblast border, the operation begins. A swarm of 660-pound Lyuty drones lifts off into the freezing darkness. These drones are skimming low at 400 feet above ground level following the river valleys along the border. They're using terrain masking, staying below the radar horizon. Every ridge, every tree line provides natural cover. Hunting down this disguised base was difficult, but gaining access to it was even harder. Millerovo Airbase is layered with defensive systems that would make most military planners nervous. First, there's the S-400 battery positioned on the high ground northeast of the runway. That radar can sweep 250 miles in every direction, tracking up to 300 targets simultaneously. Then you've got 4 Panzer S-1 units positioned around the perimeter. These things are nasty. Twin 30mm cannons that can shred low-flying drones with withering fire, backed up by surface-to-air missiles costing upwards of $1 million each. They're designed specifically to swat down exactly what Ukraine is sending their way. And then there's the electronic warfare grid. The Pol 21 system covers a 50-mile radius around the base. It's pumping out jamming signals across every GPS frequency, creating a bubble of electronic chaos. Inside that bubble, your navigation system doesn't just get confused, it gets lost. Completely. This is why Russia is confident, absolutely certain, but in just a few minutes they will be betrayed by their own technology. Remember this well, because this is the most epic technological war you've ever witnessed. But of course, those 20 Lyuty aren't flying in alone like sitting ducks. They've got a whole posse riding shotgun. From hidden launch sites near Sumy and Kharkiv, Ukraine unleashes 30 UJ-22 decoy drones into the night sky. These little troublemakers cost about $12,000 each, cheap as dirt, loud as a bad muffler, and rigged to scream high-value target on every Russian radar screen. Holy smokes! The Russians light them up like the 4th of July Panzer S-1 and Tor M2 systems roar to life, radars. Lock-on missile tubes pop open and suddenly the sky's full of streaks of fire. Panzer missiles, each one worth $500,000 to $1 million, blast off in pairs, ripping through the darkness with glowing tails. Tracers from Panzer's 30mm cannons stitch red lines across the horizon, chewing up drones that get too close. Operators in the Russian command post are yelling, high-fiving, "Got 'em, swarm neutralized!" But here's the genius part. Ukraine wants exactly this. Every missile those Panzers fire burns through ammo faster than a kid with fireworks money. Reload takes 4 to 5 minutes per launcher, precious time when you're facing a layered attack. And get this, Millerovo's a Shahed hub, so the Russians aren't wasting time. They scramble a handful of their own Shahed drones right off the pad, turning kamikaze interceptors to chase the decoys. Shahed engines whine as they lift off, homing in on the fake targets with their basic seekers. One Shahed rammed a UJ-22 midair boom, mutual destruction in a spectacular double fireball. Another Shahed dives clips a decoy's wing, sending both spiraling down in flames. It's chaos up there, Russian Shaheds hunting Ukrainian decoys over their own backyard like a dog chasing its tail with dynamite strapped on. The operators back in Ukraine watch the feed grins spreading. The decoys are doing their job, overloading, distracting, bleeding the defense dry. And while the sky's lit up with all that fireworks, the real hunters, the Lyuty, are slipping through the cracks silent and deadly. While the Russians are busy swatting decoys, Ukraine launches the real package. 20 Lyuty drones, each weighing 660 pounds at takeoff, carrying a 165-pound warhead. Range capability between 620 and 1,240 miles depending on payload and flight profile. These aren't flying blind either. They're running on inertial measurement units combined with visual terrain matching. The onboard camera compares what it's seeing with satellite imagery stored in memory. The software matches the landscape like a puzzle, maintaining course even without GPS. They were chosen to counter the Krasika 4, but there's one thing Ukraine doesn't know. The real killer here is the Pol-21. This system really kicks into high gear. The jamming intensifies. Several Liu-T drones start drifting off course 1 or 2 miles to the east. The navigation systems are fighting hard to maintain lock, but the electronic interference is brutal. Back in the Ukrainian control room, the operators are sweating, heart rate spiking. It's like driving a race car through thick fog at 100 miles per hour, hoping you don't slam into a wall. The Russians are watching their screens, seeing Ukrainian drones veering off target. They're thinking they shut them down. But here's the thing, Ukraine's not panicking. In fact, some of those operators are smiling because they've got a plan B. Remember those Liu-T vehicles that appeared? They raided the area, but the Russian air defense network isn't asleep. Early warning radars detected the swarm launch almost immediately. 2 Su-35 fighters scramble from Rostov-on-Don afterburners, lighting up the night as they climb to patrol altitude. Meanwhile, the Panzer systems around Millerovo are tracking firing, reloading. They've already shot down 4 Liu-T drones, burning wreckage scattered across the countryside. Russia is overwhelmingly dominant. The Pol-21 jamming grid is drifting the navigation systems on several more, sending them wandering into empty farmland. Ukraine's losing assets fast. 6 Liu-T drones down. Only 14 are left heading toward the target. The odds are getting worse by the minute. The Su-35 pilots are trying to get radar locks, but they're having trouble. These Liu-T drones are flying at 400 feet, hugging the terrain. The ground clutter from trees, buildings, and hills is creating massive interference on the fighter radar. Plus, the drones are built with composite materials that don't reflect radar well. To the Su-35 systems, they look like large birds or random debris. The Russian command at Millerovo is starting to relax. These drones are left and they've got multiple layers of defense still active. The hub is safe, mission accomplished. But then Ukraine plays a card that nobody expected, a card they built from Russian equipment. I believe most of you remember the Shahed drones that Ukraine stole and studied in the previous video. For those who haven't seen it, Russia actually failed to prevent Ukraine from bringing 4 Shahed back to their laboratories, and they now possess the technology, specifically the IFF transponders. The identify friend or foe systems that tell Russian air defenses, "Hey, I'm on your side, don't shoot me." Ukrainian engineers pulled one of those transponders, tested it, and verified it was still broadcasting the correct Russian codes. Then they installed it on one of the Liu-T drones. That drone is now approaching Millerovo, broadcasting a signal that says, "I'm a Shahed returning to base for maintenance." The Russian Panzer operators see it on their screens. The IFF code checks out. It's transmitting Russian authentication. They hesitate. Is this one of ours limping home? If we shoot and it's friendly, we're in deep trouble. That hesitation is exactly what Ukraine needs. The decoy drone flies in closer, forcing the Russian systems to light up with full radar and electronic warfare emissions. They're trying to identify it positively before engaging. And in doing so, they're revealing every active sensor position around the target area, including the exact location of the administrative command building near the oxygen and fuel station that services the Shahed fleet. It's a tactic I'm calling the Shahed Boomerang combined with Home on Jam, and it's absolutely genius. That decoy drone with the Russian IFF transponder has done its job. It forced the Russians to activate their full defensive grid. Radars at maximum power. Electronic warfare systems are broadcasting at full strength. Every Pol-21 node is pumping out jamming signals to protect the hub. There's only one chance. These remaining Liu-T drones switch to a navigation mode that sounds crazy until you understand the physics. They're going home on jam. They're literally using the Russian jamming signals as a beacon. Think about it this way. The Pol-21 system is like a gigantic loudspeaker screaming noise into the GPS frequencies, trying to drown out satellite signals. Most drones try to fight through that noise struggle to hear the faint GPS signals and eventually get lost. But Ukraine installed special receivers on these Liu-T drones. Receivers that don't listen for GPS at all. They listen for the loudest jamming source in the area, then they steer directly toward it. It's like Ukraine gave their drones a pair of noise-canceling headphones, but reversed. Instead of blocking the loudest sound, they're tracking it, following it, homing in on it like a bloodhound on a scent. The oxygen and fuel station where they stage warheads and fuel for the drones is the target. So while Russia thinks their jamming is protecting them, it's actually painting a giant target that says, "Hit me right here." But of course, the Russians aren't just sitting there sipping tea while the sky turns into a shooting gallery. The Panzer operators snap out of their high-five mode the second one of those remaining Luti stops drifting like a lost puppy and starts flying straight and true, locked on no nonsense, heading right for the heart of the hub. Alarms blare in the Panzer cabin. The commander barks orders, slewing the turret with a hydraulic whine. Twin 30mm 2A38M cannons spin up like angry chainsaws, spitting out 5,000 rounds per minute. Bright orange tracers lance across the night sky in long angry strings, red-hot golf balls every few feet chewing up the darkness. Up above, two Su-35s from the Quick Reaction Alert at Rostov scream down from 30,000 feet, afterburners roaring like thunder. The pilots are yelling into their masks. Target acquired low and slow composite signature. They roll inverted, diving steeply to get below the cloud deck. R-77 missiles hang hungry on the rail, seekers hungry for heat or radar reflection. But the moment they nose down toward 400 feet, the ground clutter hits like a wall. Radar screens fill with false echoes from trees, barns, power lines, and wet fields reflecting back like a million tiny mirrors. One pilot curses, "No clean lock, it's blending into the dirt." The other tries a heat seeker snapshot anyway. An R-73 streaks off the rail, glowing tail, bright against the stars, but it veers off course, chasing a false heat bloom from a burning decoy wreckage miles away. The Su-35 circle frustrated engines howling, but the Lyuti is already too low, too quiet, too close. In Ukraine, the drone operator is staring at his screen with white knuckles. The visual camera feed shows the target building growing larger. The Home on Jam navigation system is locked solid, but there's always a chance. One more drift from a wind gust. One stray round from those Panzer cannons hits a control surface. One lucky missile from the Su-35. His heart's pounding. Sweat was running down his temples despite the cold room. The mission hinges on these next 94 seconds. The Home on Jam signal is holding perfectly. The drone's following that Pole 21 transmission like it's on rails. Visual lock confirmed on the target building. The warhead's armed and ready. 90 seconds. The Panzer tracers are getting closer, walking toward the drone's flight path. 60 seconds. The Su-35 pilot fires a missile in desperation, hoping the seeker head will pick up anything. 30 seconds. The drone's onboard camera can see individual windows on the target building. The oxygen and fuel station is just beyond. Shaheds lined up on the launch rails. 10 seconds. The Panzer rounds finally find the range, but they're a fraction too late. One of the Luti drones locks onto the jamming signature. The onboard processor tracks the signal strength, makes micro adjustments to the flight path, and compensates for wind drift. It's navigating with more precision than GPS ever could because the jamming signal is so powerful, so clear, so impossible to miss. Then, at 1:37 a.m., the Lyuti impacts the administrative building. The 165-pound warhead detonates on contact. But the real devastation comes from what happens next. The explosion ruptures fuel lines running from the oxygen and fuel station into the staging area where Shaheds are being prepped for launch. You've got oxygen tanks under pressure, fuel bladders filled with aviation gasoline, warheads stacked in magazines. It's like setting off a small firecracker in a room full of fireworks. The secondary explosions cascade through the facility. Fireballs are climbing hundreds of feet into the night sky. The administrative building collapses. The fuel station erupts. Parked Shaheds on the launch pads ignite like matches. And back in Ukraine, the operators watching the infrared satellite feed are probably laughing so hard they can barely breathe. Russia just used its most advanced electronic warfare system to guide Ukrainian drones directly into their own command hub. You can't write irony better than that. The administrative command building is gone, completely. The oxygen and fuel station that serviced the Shahed fleet was destroyed. Launch pads damaged or buried under debris. Conservatively, Russia just lost 20 to 30% of its Shahed launch capability from the southern sector. That's hundreds of drones that won't be flying at least for the next several days. Remember, Millerovo was the primary hub for coordinating nighttime Shahed swarms targeting southern Ukraine. With the command building offline, the remaining units have to operate independently without centralized coordination. Launch rates are going to drop significantly. Less pressure on Ukrainian cities. Ukraine won this tactical battle. They proved you can turn Russian jamming into a navigation tool. They showed that recovered enemy equipment can become the key to your own operations. But Russia's still got massive production capacity. They're still launching hundreds of drones every night. The war's not over. The escalation isn't stopping. So here's my question for you. Do you think this strike will make Russia rethink its Shahhed strategy, or are they just going to double down, build more hubs, deploy more jamming, and keep the cycle going? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to see more breakdowns of these boomerang tactics where defenders accidentally help the attackers, smash that like button and subscribe, because trust me, there's more wild stuff coming. Glory to the innovators. Bye for now.